Managers of Reddit, what is the stupidest thing an employee did that forced you to fire them? I didn't personally fire this person, but I was manager on duty at a restaurant I work at. New ice server was dealing with a complaint a customer had with their BLT. Rather than having me talk to the table, he took a bite out of it and said I'm not seeing the problem. That magnificent bastard. I had an employee apologize to 2 different tables for forgetting to put their food order in. They had been waiting like 45 minutes and nothing had been entered into the system. We looked at the camera system because he had been acting weird all day. After he wrote down their order, he proceeded to go outside and fire up a joint. He was apparently too high to remember to put in the order. It was his first and last day. Edit. Sorry for the confusion. I meant it was his first day on the floor by himself. He had a week's training before. Every day at lunch, she would drink roughly half of her Jimmy John's, or whatever, soda, then take it with her to the bathroom to fill it back up with whiskey. She did a pretty good job covering up the smell, and since she did it from day 1 it wasn't immediately obvious that she was getting drunk. Found out on day 4 when she knocked her full cup over and we all got punched with the smell of booze in the afternoon. I was assistant manager at a restaurant for a while, and one of the newer bosses had called in 3 times in his first 2 weeks. He called in on Saturday telling me he was deathly sick and couldn't even get out of bed. Around 9 PM after the dinner rush, one of my servers asked me to go check on table 42. I turned the corner and there is a sick busser stoned out of his mind with tabuddies eating. During my first real dev job, the company I was working for tried to implement a bunch of things to improve efficiency and employee satisfaction. 2 interesting programs they implemented were work from home and agile development, along with the requisite bullpens, shared team areas. What this basically meant is that we only had to show up in the office for core hours, 4 hours, 3 days a week, and the rest of time we could work in shared areas, restaurants, parks, home. You name it. Sometimes, if you couldn't be at core hours, you would just dial in. We were young and excited and dedicated, so the core team really got a lot of good work done with this model. About 2 weeks after we started, our Scrum Master casually mentioned, "Has anyone seen Phil?" Phil was a quiet guy, and he was still answering emails and IM, so it took us a while to agree that no one had actually seen him in a long time. She called him from the speakerphone in the bullpen, and as God is my witness, here is the call that took place. "Boss, hey Phil. What's up?" Phil, "Hey boss, not much. What's up with you?" "Boss, hey, we were just noticing we hadn't seen you much lately. You ever coming back in for core hours?" Phil, "Probably not." "Boss, oh, why is that?" Phil, "Because I moved to Idaho." "Boss, but Phil, we're in DC." Phil, "I know." "Boss, why didn't you tell us you wanted to move to Idaho?" Phil, "Oh, because I knew you wouldn't let me." I had an employee lock another employee in a closet one time. The person that was trapped called the police from inside the closet. It was quite an HR nightmare. Oh, I bet. We had an employee get taped to a chair and left in a back room. Couldn't reach his phone, but Siri dialed 911 for him. Police showed up. Owner was pissed. They find him and untape him. Employees who did it were fired on the spot. One was arrested, and tape guy was up in HR for 4+ hours before they settled on enough money to make him shut up. It was an insane day. Edit. I don't know how much money the guy got. Sorry folks. This actually happened at my current place. We had a secretary. We were all curious as what she really did during the day, since it seemed like nothing got done. I ended up giving her lists to complete, but she would throw them in the trash. I got fed up and looked at her computer at the end of the day, which was probably bad on my part. Found out she was prostituting herself with her company email. Damn it, Pam. Not me, but my boss. Boss had to fire a lady in our office because she lost her marbles when someone ate her bagel from the fridge. She literally had a tantrum, like a toddler. Also, the girl who ate it by mistake. She thought it was a bagel from the office breakfast we had earlier that same morning. It was in the same packaging as the office stuff. Now, I absolutely hate it when people eat my lunch, but the girl who ate the bagel profusely apologized. Even stated she would go and buy her a new one right on the spot. But tantrum lady couldn't let it go. So that ended up being her last night. I knew someone at Subway who did not get fired for going to the washroom and taking off his pants and underwear. He was making sandwiches wearing only an apron and shirt. The manager laughed at him. I think the entire store must have been on drugs. Quote, he was making sandwiches wearing only an apron and shirt. Well, as long as he wasn't making them with his dick. Back when I was bartending, the restaurant owner allowed me to wear a kilt. One of the regular older ladies asked me, isn't that unsanitary? I asked her how she thought I was making her drinks. Forging a tip on a receipt. Like adding $20 wasn't going to get caught. One day at an old job, we got a call from a customer complaining that her credit card statement didn't match her receipt. It was $5 over. We got another call later that day saying the same thing. Later on, a dude walked in to complain. Same thing. 2 more people came in later. Their waiter had added $5 to each of their tips. They were all at the same table. Idiot. He was fired on the spot, rightfully, and the customers got hella gift certificates. Edit. Since I seem to be inspiring logic problems here. This was a table of 5 people all sitting together at lunch for a work meeting. They noticed the discrepancies when the first woman's itemized receipts didn't match up to what they said they had spent, and she asked her colleagues if it was the same for them. New guy, around 20 years old or so, called in sick saying he thinks he had a stroke. Since he lived across the street from the store where we worked, we all then stood and watched through the store's glass door as he packed up his truck with beach gear and drove off with his girlfriend. Fired the next day. 20 years old, and he thinks the most believable excuse is I'm having a stroke. Stroke of genius. Back in my days working at a used car dealership, we had a team come in and test drive a 1,500 mile Corvette. Today's equivalent would be the ZR1. Anyway, the kid drives it around our set loop once and is being a little waffle eye on if he wants to get it or not. He says it doesn't really drive as well as he thought it would. My salesman told him it was user error and he'd prove it to him. They went out for another loop around with the employee driving it. He managed to get pulled over doing 135 miles per hour in a school zone. Got arrested if I recall correctly. Needless to say, he was not welcome back at our store. However, the teen did buy the car. Had a server drink out of the customer's Dr. Pepper and Coke to see which was which in front of them. Dude, just set them down, have the customer smell or taste it. You can smell the difference between Dr. Pepper and Coke. Was he high? 2 new employees got into a physical altercation because one claimed the other wasn't hood enough. It was 2 females and this is an office job. Absolutely ridiculous. Lol, reminds me of an incident at my office. 2 girls got into it during initial training because one accused the other of stealing her highlighter and being a ghetto hoe bag. Fist fight breaks out. Managers separated them and ended up suspending them without pay for 3 days. One never came back and the other quit a week later. Hired a girl to work in a bagel store who on her first day told me she couldn't touch any of the meats because she was vegan. Had another guy show up for work his first day, was doing just fine, seemed to be good with the job. I went to the office to get some paperwork for him to fill out and he was just gone. Never came back, didn't steal anything, no explanation at all. The bad one was, had to fire a girl for not showing up for several days in a row. Saw in a newspaper the next week that she had been in jail the whole time because she had locked her kids in a closet while she was buying coke. My manager had to fire someone for doing cocaine in the toilets and then trying to gouge his own eyes out. I guess that's what working at a call center can do to someone. Call center worker here. Can confirm. Although I haven't needed cocaine just yet. Offered a job to a candidate, but had to step out of the office to grab some paperwork. Came back and a bus pass that was on the desk was missing. Newly hired employee stole it. I asked him to return it because a previous candidate dropped it and he said he needed it more than they did and walked out. Guy hired to manage a store in a mall refused to park in employee parking. As I'm sure everyone knows, mall employees have designated parking places far from the choice spots near mall entrances. This guy refused to park there, and every time he parked illegally, the store got fined $100. And he parked in customer parking every damn day. He was called out on it. The policy was explained over and over. He got written up. He was told that on the next infraction he would be fired. And he did it the very next day. Was totally blindsided when we actually fired him.